But what Hedley has to say is really interesting, because Hedley has been a have you ever met Hedley before? I don't know if you have, actually. Here he is. Good morning, Hedley Rees.
Hello, Sonia Bolton. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Have you met Sean before?
No, I haven't. Hi, Sean.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Yeah, I've heard a lot about you, so it's great to be on the show with you two fantastic broadcasters.
Thank you. Sean walks the talk. Sean has been prepared to put his head above the parapet, which is what Rise is all about, right? Sean has been manhandled by the police for standing up for our rights. Actually, the very same topic that you're here to talk about. Hedley is a whistleblower, worked in, along the pharmaceutical chain for absolutely years. It's great to see you getting about a bit now, Hedley. And you have just submitted a testimony to the grand jury in Mississippi on these damn demon jabs, right? Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm working with Dr. Mike Eden and Dr. Lee Vliet in Arizona at the Truth for Health Foundation. And one of the team members, Jancy Lindsay, she's been working with the Mississippi team. Dr. John Witcher was actually lost his job because he wanted to prescribe ivermectin, and so he's going to run for governor, and he's behind leading this project, and they're going for the grand jury based on product liability. So this is what everyone's missing. Drugs are manufactured like any other product. They go through stages. It takes years to make a drug. It takes years to develop a drug. And if a drug is defective and supplied as defective, it's covered by product liability legislation, and that's what we should all be going for, not these various other things like bioweapons and everything else, because once you realize that it takes about 10 years to get a drug onto the market to make sure it's absolutely safe. So when it's manufactured in 9 months, that's complete BS, isn't it?
Absolutely. Let me just read about this declaration. So the declaration is based on your experience and training as a pharmaceutical and I'm having difficulty with speaking this morning, and being involved in the supply chain management, as we talked about. And you said that you've submitted this in support of legal action to convene a grand jury and to pull the COVID-19 vaccines under consumer product protection statutes for lack of safety and efficacy, misrepresentation, misbranding, adulteration, and degradation. That's an awful lot of strikes against what has been put in people's body.
Oh, absolutely. I still can't believe what they've done. I know the people, I know intimately the people who were part of this, and they're all keeping their heads down. But it's not just me, it's Dr. Peter McCulloch is part of this. There's some really sort of eminent physicians. A large body of evidence has gone in. My submission is part of it. But I think this is going to be a game changer, because they're working with Florida, with Governor DeSantis in Florida. We know that various other parts, Idaho and various other states, are really starting to click on to what's happened here. So, to me, this has got to be the start of a major landslide to stop these jabs.
Wow.
Well, I mean, so Sean, I mean, Hedley actually took to task something that Robert F. Kennedy had said, and it goes back to what you just said, Hedley, because you feel that there is a distraction going on here. Robert F. Kennedy had said it's all a huge military operation, and the involvement of the drug companies is a kind of window dressing. And you said, I beg to differ. That's a diversion that is not helpful. So many facts missed out in relation to Big Pharma and Gates' involvement. So is there a glossing over taking place here?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Robert Kennedy subscribed to my Substack, Inside Pharma. He took out an annual subscription about 6 months ago, so I would have thought he'd have realized better. And Sasha Latypova, I think, much as she's worked in the industry, is not helping by creating this diversion, because this is a global phenomenon headed by Bill Gates. Bill Gates entered biopharmaceuticals in the early 2000s, going into Africa with malaria vaccine. Yeah. In 2011, he employed a guy called Trevor Mundell to join the foundation, the head of development for Novartis. Now, Novartis is one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and they have a gene therapy on the market called Kymria. The side effects are horrific. And that's one of the reasons they've done this, is because it's $470,000 for one treatment.
Oof.
And it's just not going anywhere. So they thought, well, what we need is a vaccine. So, you know, if we get the numbers up, the more people we vaccinate, the more money we make. They can't make money from these huge sort of big ticket prices for very small patient populations. But if they vaccinate the world with an mRNA vaccine, you know, 20 quid a pop, people would pay that, governments would pay that. So in 2013, I was asked by the Office for Life Sciences if I could help them with a government grant. It was a Vince Cable grant called the Advanced Manufacturing Supply Chain Initiative. There'd been 2 rounds, and the Life Sciences group had failed to get any bids approved because they were thinking like scientists, not like people who make stuff, which is what I do. I was known as a thought leader in the industry, have been for a long time.
Sure.
That's why I was kicked off LinkedIn. But I worked on a bid with a company called Oxford Biomedica, based in Cowley in Oxford. I know the site really well. I'd worked there 3 times before. Gene therapy company, a contract manufacturer, and they actually manufacture the AstraZeneca vaccine or injection, and they developed it. And they used the money from that bid that I'd led the bid, and they got a $7.1 million pound government grant. And then I was dropped from the project. I went to one meeting after that with a high-level civil servant where there was GSK people there was MHRA, there was the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, and they started talking. And I piped up and said, well, hang on, you're not involving the right people in this. And the chair of the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult gave me a dirty look, and that was the last I was part of it. So I became a sort of passive observer then. I've written this up with a UK column as well. But when the COVID started, I started to look into it, and I thought, hang on, they suddenly think these gene therapies are okay to inject into people. What are they doing?
Yeah.
And I think the government have been hoodwinked by the pharmaceutical industry and Bill Gates. You know, Bill Gates is shaking every minister's hand in the 4 countries.
Yeah.
He hasn't got a clue. All he wants to do is just make billions of money. And he's open about it. You know, he's made a real killing with Moderna and Pfizer.
Literally.
And I've got this. Oh, go on, Sean.
Do you think that the pandemic was more created to get mRNA into people?
Yeah. There was a conference in London a couple of weeks ago called Advanced Therapies. Now, advanced therapies is code for gene therapies.
Yeah.
And at that conference was Peter Marks, who is the head of FDA responsible for approving biologics, which is what these are. And he's rubbing shoulders with all these people in the pharma industry. So we know the regulators have been hollowed out by Gates. He set up this, in fact, the former CEO of the MHRA, Ian Hudson, set up this organization in 2016 before he left MHRA. It's called the International Coalition for Medical Regulatory Authorities. And its chair now is Ms. Emma Cook, who's the chair, who's also the chief executive of the European Medicines Agency. Ian Hudson was the first chair when he was at MHRA. So they've gone into all the formal official regulatory bodies and they've hollowed them out and they've put their own people in there, who are absolutely complicit in the whole thing. And, you know, it's as clear as day now, and UK government are part of it.
They absolutely are, because obviously you sent me information about 2 meetings which had taken place, and Jeremy Hunt at both of them, obviously, I think he is. And so it's Biopharmaceutical Industry Strategy Group, which was in 2014. And I think there was a further one. I'm just looking for it now, but you'll know about Hedley. Why did you want me to see those links in particular?
Well, we've got Ian McCubbin in there in the 2014 meeting, Senior Vice President, North America, Japan, and Global Pharma Supply Chain, GSK. Now, I met Ian McCubbin in 2012 in a GSK house in West London. trying to help them, with some consultancy. He just did not want to know. He is now chair of the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, which is the organization the UK government set up through Innovate UK to push gene therapies globally. And while we are talking about these poison jabs, they are moving forward with more and more and more mRNA gene therapies. They're changing all traditional vaccines back to mRNA. And it's impossible to make these safely because they're made not in the hospital, well, as they should be made. So the other thing, MHRA have changed the regulations in 2000 to facilitate the whole thing. Yeah. It's hard to sort of say enough on this.
I've been saying how if for me at the minute, I'm trying to like look at everything with the view of AI as well, because I feel like that is the virus that they've got no control over. And this is all kind of tied into that. So even with the gene therapy and stuff, like the amount of genome sequencing that they have done through PCR testing and through all this sort of stuff, like those data points that I think the West realized that China's AI and their data points, that they could probably create a virus that could just kill people with brown eyes. The UK and the West have thought, we don't have this sort of genomic sequencing. And it's kind of like asymmetrical war. If we don't do it, we're going to get left behind. If we do it, we're part of the problem.
Yeah.
And it's finding this, I just can't understand really what's right and what's obviously.
If it's scary for us, Sean, and we're looking from the outside, how much more scary would it be for an insider like Hedley, who knows exactly the problems that are taking place here? I mean, for example, if we start putting gene therapy everywhere, Hedley, what is the problem with that? Because somebody will ask me that question.
Oh, the impact is...
Well, it's because they're manufactured in 9 months. Amateur have changed the regulation, and I've written to them. I've had a few meetings with Hedley Rees, who was head of this at Amateur. I think he's retired now, conveniently. But these therapies cannot be thawed from -70 degrees C. And this is just one of the issues. They ship these vaccines into vaccination centers where they had to be thawed. They have to be dose split. They have to have saline diluent added. All those can create a totally different product that is toxic. And who knows how much of what is injected with people was improperly manufactured, because thawing is part of manufacture, and there's regulations that have been in place for 40, 50 years to make sure that anyone doing anything to the state of a medicine as they get it. So the wholesalers, we know, AAH, Alliance Healthcare, they didn't touch any of this because they cannot move -70. They can't handle -70 drugs, or -20. They're not geared up for that. So who was doing this? I can tell you who was doing it. It was Movianto. It's a company called Movianto who have been acquired by a European company, and they do contract logistics. And so it was all done behind closed doors. Now, never before has a wholesaler had a drug that they've had to do any sort of finishing work on before it goes to the doctor to administer. You go to Boots, you get something, or in any pharmacy, it's all finished. You either take it or the doctor takes it out and administers it. You don't have to change it. That's legal. That's legally required, because if a wholesaler did try and change something, they could kill someone.
Right.
So, and they've just done it in our faces. Unbelievable.
I mean, it is
right in our faces.
It absolutely is. And the thing is that all these died suddenlies that we're hearing, there's no doubt about it that there seems to be absolutely an increase in the whole issue of died suddenly. People have died suddenly forever, right? But surely not in these numbers. We're seeing healthy 30-somethings just fall down dead on stage on pictures. Do you think this is all related, Hedley?
Yeah, I use the analogy. Well, if this was Ford with a car, they developed a car 10 times faster, at least than any other car they've ever developed before. And they said, right, we put in people, we've launched it now, we're selling it, we put in people in this car. How many deaths and tragic accidents do you expect to see where the steering didn't work, or, the wheels came off? And that's exactly what's happened. These vaccines have been cobbled together, absolutely, by people. Some knew what they were doing, but I think others didn't really know what they were doing, because this has so much been a black box. and the whole propaganda behind it has been so powerful. It's unbelievable. So, you know, it's I just try and get the word out as much as possible. But up till now, if you are a doctor or a scientist, they don't want to listen to what you're saying. But
Right.
you know, there's so
Right.
little science in manufacturing any sort of medicinal product.
Well, keep us updated with what happens in terms of that grand jury, because that's fascinating. That could open up the whole thing. you
Oh
know?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see the file in a couple of days, the whole file that went in, so I can share what I can once I've got that, and as long as I'm allowed to do it. So, yeah. Well, it's great chatting again. I always enjoy
Lovely to
these
talk
chats.
to you, Hedley. We always appreciate your insight because, you know, it's a genuine insider. So, and it's very brave of you to do that. I'm sure many of your colleagues loathe and detest you for cutting into their profits, really, because that's essentially what you're doing.
Yeah, it's quite cathartic actually, because I've been telling them this since 2010 and no one's listened. I think there's so many people now want answers besides me personally that, you know, I'm really glad to get this opportunity. So, yeah, so you take care.
You
And
take care.
sure
Well,
we'll
we
speak
wish you a
again
lovely
soon.
week, Hedley, everybody. Hedley
Cheers.
Rees, a genuine whistleblower. Take good care of yourself,
Lovely
Hedley.
to meet you, mate. Thank you.
Bless you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Ta-ra.
Very brave what he's doing. He's going up against the entire industry, bless
Huge.
him.